Hello, everybody, and welcome to. I was about to say back, but not really. This is kind of a new series, maybe. We'll see how this goes. If you guys like this sort of thing, we're gonna do more in the future because this is something that's been requested before on character spotlights and stuff like that, doing kind of list building focused videos. So that's what we're gonna be doing today. And I figured for kind of the first one, because we did like a list review thing a while back, but I think list building is more interesting and more kind of interactive as a video. So what we're going to be doing here is we're going to be every, intro in or entry into this series, assuming it makes it past this one, if you guys are interested in it and want to see more. Basically we're gonna come with an idea and we're gonna build a list, through Jarvis protocol, and just by the end of it kind of be like, okay, this is what we've done. Have we set out what we were trying to accomplish? Does this look like something that would be fun to play? Does this look like something that would be, reasonably solid? And I guess the idea with a lot of this is a lot of the lists that we build during this, I'm going to try to bring at some point either in a battle report or to a tournament or something like that. So hopefully I'll get to actually use some of these lists, and then you guys can interact with me through the comments and stuff like that to kind of be like, hey, your list absolutely sucks, but here's how you can make it not suck. And then over time, in theory, I'll end up with some really solid lists. And yeah, so I wanted to start out for the very first kind of introduction to this series. I want to go way back to the first list that I ever brought to a tournament. I want to take it apart and I want to put it back together as kind of a modern reconstruction that reflects a little bit better kind of A, the current metagame, B, just kind of my acknowledgement and understanding of what's good, as well as just the expansion of my collection, and C, taking out some of the stuff that's banned because, well, it's banned. So the first tournament I ever did, if we go way down here, was hosted in, November of 2022. And oh, I didn't mean to click show games. I wanted to go to the tournament. So this tournament, I will always be proud of because I did manage to pull first place, which was fantastic. Now, I was very, very new, obviously. It was my first tournament, but so was everybody else at the event. So it's not that much of an accomplishment. We were all fairly new players, and it was a small event. So not really any bragging rights for it, but I am very proud of it, especially because it was my first one. So that's pretty cool. But as you can see, I brought a triple affiliated roster. It was Midnight Suns, Avengers, and Defenders. And this was before Daredevil was a leader of Defenders. So this was the list that we had. So I actually already went ahead and I reconstructed this list in Jarvis. So we're going to go ahead and take a peek at that here. And just because the format's a little nicer than Longshanks, but I just wanted the Longshanks as kind of the introduction of like, yeah, I actually ran this piece of garbage and it did okay. Um, so here we have the list, and obviously we have one leader for each of the above affiliations here. We have OG Steve Rogers, we've got Doctor Strange with a Soul Stone, and we have Blade. And then for kind of the Avengers side of things, we had Luke Cage, and Blade was affiliated, and Iron Fist. And I believe, yeah, I believe that's all of the Avengers here. So we had four Avengers characters. Then going into the Defenders side of things, we had a few more. We had Doctor Strange, Ghost Rider, Blade, Wong, Iron Fist, Moon Knight, and Luke Cage. The majority of the list was affiliated here, but even back then I acknowledged that Doctor Strange was probably the worst of these characters as far as leaders go. So we didn't end up playing too much Defenders, if I remember correctly. And then lastly, Midnight Suns, which was kind of what this was trying to be from the start. Then it was like, wait, I don't own enough characters for this. Let me throw in some others. So we had Blade, Ghost Rider, Strange, Wong, Iron Fist, and Moon Knight as our Midnight Suns affiliated characters. Zemo was in here because Zemo was and always will be a very good model unless they, nerf him or something. But he's great, probably one of the strongest models in the original core box. So yeah, he made the cut just because. And Venom, I really, really enjoyed playing Venom. I liked him a lot in Midnight Suns. The extra mobility was really good for him. I like him a lot in Avengers because he has that pull online turn one, which is absolutely fantastic. And in a tournament like this, where it was entirely newer players and none of us understood the concept of a safe grab, was very, very powerful. Um, so stuff like that was really fun, and those were kind of my two characters that weren't affiliated anywhere, but they made the cut because I felt like they were quite good. We were running the Soulstone on Strange because, and I still kind of stand by this today, Strange is really power hungry, and the Soulstone helps with that. It's not ideal because he's definitely not worth sixth threat, but it feels better than running him without it. I'm gonna be honest, we're probably cutting Strange from this list. He was here for the third affiliation, haha, funny, but we're cutting Strange from this list and probably putting in Daredevil. Then we have team tactics cards. So we had Deal with the Devil because that's really, really good. We had a Wong, so obviously there's an obvious target for that one too. Heroes for Hire, we're running both. That's a no-brainer. That's going to be staying. Avengers Assemble, fantastic card. That'll be staying. Lethal Protector, if you're bringing Venom, it's worth bringing. That's probably going to stay as well. Siege of Darkness is, yeah, Midnight Suns. Of course, we're bringing Siege. Second Wind will probably end up tossing. I ran this card a lot when I was starting out because I just didn't really know what to run instead of it. But it never really felt all that great to me. And yeah, this is probably not going to make the final version of this. We have Follow Me, which is banned now, so we're definitely swapping that out. And we were running Patch Up as our other restricted card. We'll revisit both of them. We might end up sticking with Patch Up, and obviously Follow Me will have to go. Escort to Safety, because somehow I acknowledged that that was a good card back then, so that's cool. And then we had Highway, because I really tried to make Highway work with Ghost Rider, and it's still not a bad card. I don't hate it, but it probably won't make the cut, but we'll see how things shake out. Going into Crises, we have Demons Downtown, Infinity Formula, and Deadly Meteors, as well as Struggle for the Cube, Spider Infected, and Montesi. As you can tell, a lot of these weren't really ideal, and the reason why I was running a lot of the ones that I am here is just because they were the ones that came in the core box, and this was before they kind of gave you all of the scenarios and generic tokens and stuff like that. So you kind of had to run the ones that you'd been able to get your hands on, and just so happens that my only non-core box scenarios that I had that I felt like were better than the core box ones for my list was Montesi and Demons. So we're going to be doing a lot of changes to the Crises here. But yeah, we're going to go ahead and start in the editing here. So we're going to go back to editing here, and let's start kind of picking this apart. So first of all, let's sort these out a little bit more. We want to keep the spirit of this having a kind of triple affiliated roster here. So, you know, Blade, Ghost Rider, Moon Knight, Iron Fist, and Wong, I think they all have to stay, just because they are fairly important to that kind of idea. But we're going to put the ones that are Avengers affiliated lower down on the list so we can put them beside our Avengers characters, such as Mr. Steve Rogers and Luke Cage. Then we're going to have our splash characters down at the bottom here, and we'll put Doctor Strange actually probably at the top. Or, no, Doctor Strange can go right there. That's fine. But honestly, I think where Doctor Strange is really going to go is out of the list, because at this point, Defenders have a much better leader now, and Doctor Strange was really only in here because I owned him. He was affiliated in Midnight Suns, which was nice, but we had no problem being affiliated in Midnight Suns, and we never actually really wanted to justify him when we had 5-threat Ghost Rider, who was better than 6-threat Doctor Strange. So I think Strange is out. I think that's easily the first cut we can make here. As far as the other Midnight Suns go, I think it's valuable to keep most of them in. There's an argument that Moon Knight should go, but I don't want to kind of break the spirit of this list, and I don't want to suddenly start focusing it around another like large model that's not Ghost Rider. So I don't want to put in an Immortal Hulk or a Hulk here, because I think that kind of goes against what we were trying to do. And while that would also be an excellent option for the Avengers list, I think with the Avengers side of things, we really want to focus on the idea of a bodyguard brick, because that was kind of what I was doing back when I was playing this list as kind of my main list. Was I was unintentionally running a bodyguard brick just because a lot of the models that I liked and owned were capable of doing that. So obviously Steve Rogers himself is a bodyguard. I was running Iron Fist and Luke Cage, who are both A, Avengers, and B, they have access to Heroes for Hire. And then I had Venom who had Lethal Protector, and I was running Venom just because he was one of my favorite characters, and I really enjoyed his playstyle. And Lethal Protector is a great card, so I was running it alongside him because that just made sense. So I think Venom definitely makes the cut as well, just to kind of tie into that kind of Avengers game plan with this list, where Avengers is running a very early version of the bodyguard list that I'm running today, and then Midnight Suns is going not necessarily wide, but a little wider. They're not doing an Immortal Hulk, and they're going to kind of focus around Ghost Rider and helping him build up that power. You know, if my opponent punched any of my guys, which again we didn't understand the concept of safe grabs, they probably were. Then Ghost Rider would be on 2 power, which meant Wong could put him up to the third, which was enough for him to do his thing. So that felt really good. And in more modern games where my opponent's, maybe acknowledging that that's a threat, they might not punch Ghost Rider, but then what I can use Wong for is powering up Venom. So once again, Venom really, really is going to be a core part of this list, I think. So yeah, that's gonna be something worth considering. And then Zemo's the other splash here, who I don't think he's necessarily someone we want to keep in the list. Obviously, Zemo is not a bad model at all, but he doesn't really fit the game plan for any of the affiliations we're going to be bringing. And as we've already established, we're bringing in Daredevil to replace that Defender's leadership because we do want the triple leadership here. So we're going to bring in Daredevil, and that means I think Zemo is going to end up being our only open slot. And I might have to think for a minute on who should replace Zemo. So I'm going to go ahead and pause the recording and come back when I've had some ideas on that. So I came up with a couple options on who could replace Zemo because one of the things this list is kind of missing by taking Zemo out is it's a little light on heavy kind of damage dealers and hyper mobile models. So there was a couple options I was kind of thinking of for that. One of them being Sam because he's very, very mobile. He's got the charge. He gets the same benefits from Steve 1 that Zemo did of, having that online turn 1. He's also just an excellent model, and it would provide me with another leadership option. So on one hand, that sounds really, really good. But on the other hand, I don't think that's really in the spirit of the list because if I am running his leadership, then I'm not really doing what this list is trying to do. And because I'm probably not running Steve if I'm running Sam leadership, so I'm kind of immediately falling away from that bodyguard brick idea there. And while this model doesn't have to be a bodyguard themselves, I do want them to still kind of play into that theme. So that kind of pushes him out a little bit, unfortunately. But I do think it's a worthwhile consideration. Other characters I was considering are some that I run in my modern version of the list. So stuff like Crimson Dynamo or Gwen, wherever she is here. Um, they're both really, really good models for the bodyguard brick at just making it even more obnoxious to get through. Gwen doing her lifesavers and things to pull things out of the way. Crimson Dynamo applying shocks and giving, making them re-roll their attack dice. Those could all be really, really powerful things. So I think they're definitely worth considering. And if my objective here was to actually just make this a really, really strong list, those are probably some routes I would consider going. But I am trying to stick to the theme and I'm trying to stick to the kind of idea behind this, and I for that reason I don't think either of them really fit the bill too much. There's also a strong consideration going to Voodoo here. Voodoo is both an Avenger and a Midnight Sun, so he fits really well in that regard. Just because that's 2 of the 3 affiliations that we're going for here, so that helps us keep that affiliation. And I think there's a strong argument for him here. He gives us some more mystic attacks, specifically if we're running the Avengers list, because they don't tend to run any of those, whereas the Midnight Suns version has a handful here. But that works because he's also good in Midnight Suns and Avengers, so he can get a lot of value. He doesn't get too much from Steve's leadership now that he's been updated. Just looking at his card real quick here, the only thing it really gives him is the recall spirit, is back to its original cost, but he no longer can throw using the leadership, so that's not great for him, but he's still a really good model. And when you're passing out that token, he can kind of play into that whole idea of we're going to be bodyguarding Voodoo now because he's vulnerable without the token. So I think there's a strong consideration to be made for him there. And of course, he is an objective dropper, and turns out those are very, very good, and our list doesn't have one yet. Another consideration goes to someone like Scarlet Witch for kind of similar reasons. Oh, I didn't mean to actually add her there. Because Scarlet Witch is a model that I've been meaning to play around with for a while. I just got and painted mine, and she's yet to actually see the table, so I'm looking forward to trying her out sometime soon. But B, She's a Avenger and a Defender affiliated model, so she doesn't fit the Midnight Sun side of thing, but we do already have a fair number of Midnight Suns in the list. She's going to kind of fit that bill of being a model that we're going to want to protect a lot of the time. So having that bodyguard brick kind of built around her is certainly going to help. And yeah, again, it's just a model I've been wanting to try out because she is a really powerful model and she definitely hits like a truck, which will make up for the fact that most of our Avengers list is a little on the pillow-fisted side. She is another 5 threat, so she's competing with Ghost Rider in that 5 threat spot, specifically if we're playing defenders where they're both affiliated. But I think for Avengers, it can relatively consistently be her as the 5 threat there. Or if I, see that the scenario needs a lot of mobility and less value from a turret, then there is still an argument for Ghost Rider there. And similarly with defenders, I can make that choice based on what kind of scenario we roll up. But it does somewhat confuse the list building, so I'm not 100% sure how I feel about putting Scarlet Witch in this list right now. Final consideration here goes to Wolverine. Once again, he's just Avengers and Defenders affiliated, so that's pretty good. He's going to fit into both of them. He's not competing for that 5 threat slot, which is really nice. And he is just another super killing model. Unfortunately, here I'm going to let my personal bias kind of get in the way, in that Wolverine has never actually worked for me. So while he's a really powerful model, and under Steve 1, he's even more powerful. Because he can do some pretty crazy things, because Steve 1 lets him do that charge for 1 power, so we can do it turn 1, and then you can use no matter the cost to bring Berserker Barrage down to, well, one cost if somehow you've gained another power from something, or bring it down to 0, so you can use Berserker Barrage round 1, and then your healing factor is going to heal off 2 of that damage anyways, so you've only really taken 1 damage to do this, and potentially done a lot of damage with this attack. So really, really powerful combo that unfortunately has just never actually worked for me in practice, although I've definitely seen it work for other people and it is really strong. But for me, he doesn't quite fit into what I'm trying to do on one hand because he's also not really a model that requires that kind of bodyguard brick protection, and he just doesn't work all that well for me most of the time. So personal bias getting in the way here, but we're going to pass on Logan. And I think the more I think about it, I am just leaning to selecting Scarlet Witch for this, partially just because I want to try her out. So we're going to pick Scarlet Witch and see how it goes. So we're looking once more at our kind of final character list here, and right now we have a pretty good selection of characters across the different affiliations. We've got some really solid options for all 3 of our main affiliations here, and the only character who's not affiliated with any of them is Venom, and that's okay because I think Venom's a fairly important part to this list, and I think he's pretty much being brought every game under Steve, but again, scenario may be dependent. So I think that's pretty good. One thing that I might want to play around with a little bit is kind of the Midnight Suns core, because I have left that pretty much untouched, and I think there are things that can be improved. Notably, I'm not a huge fan of Moon Knight. I find he personally doesn't perform for me all that often. He is pretty solid if you're trying to run kind of a Siege of Darkness focused team. So I definitely want to replace him with another Midnight Sun. And this is where I think I'm coming back to Voodoo as a character that's affiliated in a couple of these places. We're losing one for Defenders, but that's okay because Scarlet Witch is Defenders affiliated. So we're okay with being one more down there. But we're gaining one for Avengers this way, and Avengers was probably one of the fewer affiliated characters teams here, so that actually helps balance things out just a little bit, I think. And yeah, I'm pretty happy with this list. I think this is a solid list of 10 characters to go off of. So yeah, I think we're on to tactics cards. So looking at tactics cards here, immediately we're going to deal with these restricted cards. So Follow Me obviously has to go. And I think the kind of obvious replacement for it is just Brace for Impact. Brace for Impact is a really powerful card, as I'm sure most of you are aware. And this list in particular can really be hurt by some big throws. Steve Rogers, as someone who plays him a lot competitively, one of his biggest weaknesses is just having stuff thrown at him. So I think Brace is a very solid kind of counter that. Usually in my standard Avengers list, I'd be replacing Patch Up with Indomitable, but in this case, I actually think I'm leaning towards keeping Patch Up in the list, just because a lot of our characters are relatively small as far as sizes go, and the ones that would be thrown aren't really ones that mind moving if they have to. I mean stuff like Steve or, Iron Fist or Cage. They don't love it, but if they get thrown, they can walk. Scarlet Witch, it's not great if she ends up getting thrown, but we do have Avengers Assemble, and we can kind of hold that for when that happens. So I think it's solid on that side. The Midnight Suns aren't too bad for that either. Their biggest character is Ghost Rider, so I'm not too worried about him being thrown at my other characters, and we do still have Brace if I absolutely need it. But then also with Midnight Sun's leadership, Bump in the Night, they're going to be able to place themselves closer anyways, so I don't think we really need Indomitable here, even though it's probably one of my favorites. And we certainly have enough like bodyguard style models in the list that we don't need sacrifice. So I think Patch Up and Brace are kind of the right calls here. Going into other cards, we're going to get rid of Second Wind right away because I don't think Second Wind is all that important here. I think most of our other character or affiliated cards, though, are quite good, and we're going to keep them in. Although there is an argument to remove Highway, I'm going to take a look real quick and see what kind of options are available to us, and we'll discuss some of those. So at first, I was actually thinking of going with No More Mutants because No More Mutants is a really powerful card that could kind of replace that slight concern I had with not bringing Indom. And it is a pretty solid card. I mean, being able to turn off an opponent's superpowers for a turn, it's a royal screw you to stuff like Cosmic Ghost Rider. So it is really strong. On the other hand, I was also kind of considering Battle Plan here because while I think it's a little bit overcosted, I do really like this card for its ability to remove stuff like staggers from Avengers because Avengers don't have all that much in the way of condition removal. So having something like Battle Plan is a great way to kind of just be like, okay, Scarlet Witch has been staggered. Let's get rid of that. Um, so I think Battle Plan is an interesting card for that reason. But then I thought about it a little bit more and I was looking at some of the other cards available and I saw Whims of Chaos here. And I actually really like this card because this is condition removal and damage removal if I want instead, which is another thing that what's it called, Battle Plan could have done. So obviously I'm not really gaining much on that side, but I can also use it to hand out conditions to my opponent's team, and it costs a little less power unless I'm trying to hit 3 or more different characters with it. But in that case, I think I'm getting, better kind of overall value out of it than I am on Steve's. So I think this card beats out Battle Plan, and now my only kind of concern is, does it beat out what's it called here? No More Mutants. And the only reason why I'm hesitant to just say, well, why don't I just run both is my alarming lack of generic cards here. So if I'm playing defenders, I really don't have all that many options for cards. So I think at this point we're definitely getting rid of Highway. And we're gonna put in Whims of Chaos because I do really like Whims of Chaos. But that extra slot, as much as I would love for it to be a Scarlet Witch card in No More Mutants, I think we might have to make it a generic just because looking through here for defenders, we'll take Brace and Patch Up because they're Brace and Patch Up. We'll take Escort to Safety because it's a generically good card. And then I guess we can assume we're either running Scarlet Witch or Ghost Rider if we're running defenders, in which case we're bringing Deal with the Devil or Whims of Chaos. So that's brought us up to 4 cards, but our 5th card, unless we're also bringing, well, actually, we're also bringing Heroes for Hire there, so maybe we can get away with this because we're definitely bringing, at the very least, Luke Cage. I think if we're playing defenders here, so maybe we can get away with 2 Scarlet Witch cards. I think it's a little risky, but I don't hate it. It means there might be the odd scenario where it feels a little bad, where I chose not to bring Scarlet Witch or Ghost Rider, and that kind of screws over my card options. Because if I'm playing Midnight Suns now becomes the concern of Heroes for Hire, Siege of Darkness, or not Heroes for Hire, Deal with the Devil, Siege of Darkness, Escort to Safety, Patch Up, Brace. Okay, that's that's actually still 5. So you know what? I think we can get away with No More Mutants here. We're playing it very tight with the tactics cards. We're going to be forced into which ones we're bringing, but I don't think that's necessarily that bad. Um, it's still more options than my current kind of main Avengers list, where I find I've been bringing the same 5 tactics cards every game. So yeah, I don't hate this actually. I think this works okay. All right, so lastly here, we're going to take a look at crises. And crises, I think we're pretty much just going to start over on these, I'll be honest. They're that's going to be something we're going to completely redo. So we have a lot of options. This is a very versatile list, and that kind of comes with being three affiliations. We have kind of some kind of, bodyguard bricky. We're gonna like a lot of sort of emaps and researcher even and stuff like that. So that's gonna be kind of our Avengers game plan. We've got some mobility on the Midnight Sun side through Ghost Rider and defenders with Daredevil and Ghost Rider. We've got good turret models that are going to be pretty solid on stuff like B maps, for example, or even F maps. So we can kind of get away with a lot of different things. One of the ones that does kind of jump out to me is we could be really, really good on demons because we do have Ghost Rider and Voodoo who are both Incinerate immune. So that's kind of something that makes me kind of lean towards that a little bit. Plus, I just like playing at 19 threat. I don't know what it is, but it seems to work out pretty well for me. So I think we're going to throw demons in here because I do think we're pretty solid for that. We don't have really any safe grabs in this list. We have some kind of pseudo safe grabs in, well, I guess Iron Fist for Midnight Suns is a safe grab, but safe is a very loose term for that one, because it's really just a bump back, but it's not bad. So I think what we want to do is we kind of want to force that our opponent isn't really able to get away with safe grabs either, so we don't mind having some kind of middle secure points. So for that reason, I think I'm actually going to point towards something like possibly intrusions, because that also kind of works well for Avengers. Or I don't hate the idea of the deadly meteors that we had in the original version of the list. Because I mean, it's a pay to flip, which isn't the best thing in the world. They're not always the most consistent. And energy defense, I think, across the board is one of our lower defensive stats, but it's not that bad. And it's another one that's kind of gonna play that tight quarters game, so that's gonna be good for my bodyguard brick here. And yeah, I think it's gonna be one of those ones where you can't safe grab a secure. So I guess you kind of can when it's like this, but then it's really easy for your opponent to take it back. So um I think meteors is worth playing around with, and we'll throw that in there as well. So then for the other ones, I'm just kind of looking at stuff that might benefit one of mine more. I do like the idea of Infinity Formula there with Scarlet Witch. I think she could be a really effective turret there, although I do also think she's a very effective turret on Deadly Meteors. Maybe less so on Demons. There is an argument to take out Demons for that reason, but I think Demons were just running Midnight Suns. So she could be really effective on Infinity Formula as long as, she can get the range bands she needs. I could also see her working reasonably well on something like Sword, maybe. I think she'd have pretty good reach there. So I don't hate that. I definitely don't want to be throwing her on like a D map or something like that. And I do want to see her get a chance to play here. I don't love her for Scoundrels either because cover and stuff is not great. So I think it's between Infinity Formula and Sword, and I think in this case I might lean towards maybe Sword. I've been really liking Sword lately, so we're actually going to put in Sword. I think there's an argument for Gamma as well, because she can just kind of sit on the back point and shoot the middle point, and that's quite good, and keeps her more out of danger, but I'm going to go with Sword, because it's more interesting and fun, so we're going to do that. And then going into the extracts here, and I might take a minute to think about this one. All right, so I've thought of a couple that I like here. First of all, relatively across the board, I think we have pretty solid Mystic defenses between Scarlet Witch, Ghost Rider, Blade, those types of characters. I think it's definitely one of the ones where we'd be kind of more inclined to be running, um, what's it called, Midnight Suns, just because Daredevil and Steve Rogers are both kind of punished by Mystic attacks. But that said, the Montesi beams aren't that hard hitting, so I'm not too worried about them. And I think the which team we build will be largely dependent on the rest of the scenarios. But yeah, I think Montesi is a solid one to keep in there. Similarly, I really like the idea of Scarlet Witch with a hammer, and also Ghost Rider is a great candidate to be picking up a hammer because he can pick up a hammer without moving, so then he can kind of end up on whatever point he wants to be. So while I don't know if it's necessarily the best, it certainly seems like a lot of fun. So we're gonna throw hammers in there just because it seems like fun. And for our last scenario, there's a few options here. We could do something like Research Station. Research Station would definitely be quite good for our kind of Avengers list here. Not the best in the world for Scarlet Witch because she doesn't love having to be that close, but she's not really going to be an extract player anyways. She's mostly going to be a turret and a damage piece. So we don't mind too much if she's not really playing that game, as long as the rest of my team is, and she's doing enough damage that she can make up for the fact that she's not standing on the point. So there's a strong argument for it there, but also I play a lot of researcher and I should mix things up once in a while. So there's an argument for something like a legacy virus. I think I do have an objective dropper in Voodoo, and arguably the best objective dropper in the game still. Even post nerf, he can drop multiple models in one activation relatively easily. So he's really good for something like that, and that's solid. My lack of safe grabs does make it a little riskier to be running something that has three midline extracts. That's certainly not something we want to be playing around with too much. But in in Midnight Suns, where he's affiliated, we do have Iron Fist as a safe grab if we need it. So that is a thing. And again, safe is kind of in air quotes with that one because it's not really safe, but it's safer. Um, so we have some options for that. I definitely don't think this list wants to be playing around too much with the super wide ones. So like I don't love the idea of struggle for the cube or senators. I think those could be a little dangerous for this risk of just like my opponent's team is just going to score out before I really have a chance to react to them. I do think my team is going for a little bit more of a drawn out, more attrition game. So we don't want anything that's going to score too quickly. So for that reason, I think I'm convincing myself on Legacy Virus here, and we're just going to go with that. So that is the list built. We're going to go ahead and save it real quick. And yeah, let's take a look at this monstrosity we've created. So here we go. This is the final list, and we've got a solid mix of characters here. We've got, it looks like what, one, two, three, four, five, six Avengers affiliated characters, one, two, three, four, five Midnight Suns, and then one, two, three, not Voodoo actually, four, five, six, seven Defenders characters. So we've got a really solid mix there. Weirdly enough, we ended up with more defenders than anything else, which is absolutely wild. And also, am I just bad at counting? No, I'm not. That's actually seven defenders. Okay, cool. Turns out defenders is a huge affiliation, and you can just kind of accidentally be defenders affiliated. But yeah, I think we've got a really solid mix of characters here. We have some good character synergies. We've kind of got that kind of bodyguard core here of Steve, Cage, and Venom. We've got Scarlet Witch, who's going to be our primary damage dealer in somewhere like Avengers. And then in Defenders, we can kind of pivot between Witch or Ghost Rider based on the scenario. And we can do that in Avengers too, because we do have a little bit of room to play with splashes here. And then for Midnight Suns, when we're playing on those more, we desperately feel like we need a safe grab, or B, if we're playing on something like Demons, where we want the Incinerate immunities, we have two characters there who can do that. And again, Splash and Ghost Rider means we can kind of do that anywhere. But yeah, I think we've got some solid, well-rounded options here. And I definitely think I didn't really mention this, but a lot of the crises we picked going into the crises down here are also kind of more close quarters oriented, which supports the bodyguard brick, but also just supports the Daredevil Defenders leadership of kind of giving us those extra rerolls for being close to people. And I think there's going to be a lot of value in that, especially with again, more synergy with characters like Venom, who are going to be pulling people in. So we're going to be able to get more characters in that range 2 band to kind of give us those extra rerolls, which is going to be really nice. So I think there's going to be play for all three affiliations here based on kind of matchup and scenario. And then as far as tactics cards go, we're definitely playing it a little tight by running 2 Scarlet Witch cards, a Ghost Rider card, and then a Luke Cage Iron Fist card, and a Venom card. So 5 character locked cards on top of 2 affiliation locked cards, meaning we only actually have 3 generic cards. But I think pretty much every game we're going to be bringing Heroes for Hire, because I do like Cage as a splash in Midnight Suns as well. So that's kind of almost 4 auto includes, but then we'll play around with whether or not Escort makes it based on which other characters we're bringing. Scarlet Witch provides a couple really powerful cards that I think are going to be really important to the Avengers side of this roster. So I think that's going to be really good there. And then obviously Ghost Rider and Deal with the Devil are kind of stapled together. This list doesn't really have that many high threat models. We are playing with the double 5 slot, so that's a little risky to play through. But we do have a handful of, or I guess two 3 threats and a 2 threat, so we have some okay targets for Deal with the Devil there. And even a 4 threat once in a while is the right call. So um, we've got some options with those. Lethal Protector is just a really good card if we're bringing Venom, and Venom is a little scary in the current kind of Guardians centric meta. But we'll see. If I see a good opportunity to put him on the table, he's definitely going to be, because he is kind of a core part of the original plan for this list. So we don't want to kind of, exclude him just because he's kind of fallen out of the meta, unfortunately. But yeah, that's going to be the list here. So this is our Defenders, Midnight Suns, and Avengers triple affiliated roster. And I'm going to bring this to an event. I'm going to bring this to, I think there's a Gamebridge event coming up in, I want to say March, early March, and I might try to bring this there. And if I do, there will be a tournament recap on it. Obviously, this list isn't really something that would be great for a battle report, because you're only going to end up seeing one side of the list. You're not going to see the whole thing. So less so there, but I will be bringing this for a tournament in the near future, and hopefully it does reasonably well. So, and I'm also realizing I've totally dated this video by saying the event that I want to bring this to is early March, because there's a world this actually comes out after the event, but we'll see. I don't know exactly how far ahead I am on these videos. This is replacing the character spotlight this week. I think I only want to do so many videos in a week where it's just kind of me talking to, the Jarvis protocol screen. Well, I do think these are valuable uploads, and I love that you guys actually really engage and seem to enjoy these types of videos. Specifically now talking about the character spotlights. I don't want to kind of flood my channel with those, when at the end of the day we are primarily a battle reports channel. I do want to stick to that as much as I can. So I try not to do too many of these in a week. So this will be replacing the character spotlight this week. But let me know how you guys feel about that as well. If you guys would prefer that I just uploaded both, that's totally something I'm open to doing. This won't be a weekly thing, even if it does really well and you guys want to see more. At most, I think I would alternate it with the character spotlights, or every other week if you guys decide you want to see both of them coming out in the same week. So we'll see. We'll figure that out as things go on. But I am looking forward to doing more of these, because this was fun. I enjoy list building. It's one of my favorite parts of most miniature games, and I think with MCP, it's a kind of streamlined enough system that we can kind of knock out a list building with explanations and thought put into all the decisions in reasonable video length. And this one had a lot of extra stuff, like my longer intro and now this extended outro here, because I don't know how to close out videos. I still haven't figured that out, and I've been doing this for a while now. But hopefully future ones I can keep around or less than that 30-minute mark, if we can manage that, because do want to respect your guys' time. I appreciate you guys so much for watching these videos, but I also acknowledge that you guys have your own lives and things like that, so I don't want to take up too much of your time if I don't have to. So on that note, we are going to go ahead and call this video here. I hope you guys enjoyed. Hopefully that you got something out of this. Maybe you'll try out the list for yourself, or try something kind of similar to it. Actually, you know what? That's gonna be my thing here. I'm gonna challenge you guys to come up with a triple affiliated roster, and maybe try to run it at a local event, or your local games night or something, and see how it goes. And let me know down below in the comments what kind of lists, or what kind of triple affiliations you would want to try out. Because I think that's always a kind of a fun idea. Everyone talks about dual affiliating and stuff like that, but nobody talks about triple affiliating, and I think it's really interesting and really fun, especially when you can kind of pick three where it's like there's some overlap here, but it's not kind of the most obvious three. Like I mean, Avengers is wide enough that like that's why it works, but Defenders and Midnight Suns I think mesh a lot more than Avengers and either of them. So, but yeah. Curious to know what you guys think, and also just let me know your thoughts on this list. What decisions would you have made that I didn't make? Anything you think I should have tried to force in here, or remove that I didn't remove? let me know. I'm really curious to hear what you guys have to say. And who knows, by the time that tournament rolls around, maybe I'll have actually made a couple changes based on what you guys said. So we'll see. But yeah, until next time, everybody, I hope you guys enjoyed one more time. And yeah, that's about all for me. Have a great day, everybody. Peace.